This is Khatt Chronicles, design stories from the Arab world. My name is Huda Smitshuijzen AbiFarès, and I have with me today the partners from Dubai-based design studio Mobiüs, Hadeyeh Badri, Hala Al-Ani, and Riem Hassan. Hadeyeh, Hala, and Riem met at college at the American University in Sharjah as students in the graphic design program. After graduation, they decided to collaborate on projects and eventually founded Mobiüs Studio in 2010. They explored self-initiated projects that ranged from curating exhibitions to conducting research while taking on design projects of cultural relevance. Situated at Tashkil, a co-working artists hub in Dubai, they have kept abreast with the local artistic and design scene, exploring and promoting its potential. They are renowned for humor in their work and for exploring the multifaceted cultural melting pot of the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Their design work ranges from branding to editorial design to new media. In recent years, they have returned to their alma mater to teach and to share their professional and diverse postgraduate studies and experiences. In 2020, they launched an online collaborative archive project that is still in progress, they called the Looming Council. Please join me in welcoming Hadeyeh, Hala, and Riem. Hello, ladies.
Hi, hello.
Hi,
it's so lovely to have you here and to get a chance to introduce the world to your work and to yourselves. So thank you for joining us. Maybe you can just add to my very brief bio a little bit about yourself and when did you decide to become designers and how did you decide to form Mobiüs together?
I did my undergrad studies at the American University of Sharjah, but then I moved to do my graduate studies at the Basel School of Design and University of Illinois, Chicago. How I was introduced to design, I enrolled in the US to pursue architecture at the beginning. And I remember the school giving us a tour of the different majors that they are offering in the design school. And I was more drawn towards the idea of making images and the power of images. And so I switched within a year to visual communication. Yeah, that's from my end.
So I have a very similar biography to Hala.
Thanks, Hala. Okay.
So I obviously also graduated from AUS in Sharjah. I was a multimedia design student, and when I did my master's in also Basel School of Design, this is when I started in my practice leaning a little bit more towards graphic design, but I'm still very much interested in time-based media, and I try to integrate it into my personal work and also the work of the studio. My interest in design generally also was, its entry point was animation and motion graphics.
Okay.
And this is what got me interested. I was based in Egypt before I come here specifically to pursue a multimedia degree, because in Egypt back then, that was in 2005, there were no design majors or programs back then, which started being sort of developed a year after. So that was sort of my start point of my interest, and then obviously developed into what we do now in the realm of the studio.
And Hadeyeh, how was your entry point into the field?
Well, entry point, I feel, I don't know if we can call it entry point, but let's say a very ignorant view of what design is. I think I was enrolled as an interior designer, similar to Hala in some way, because I, at the time, associated design with having good taste.
Okay.
And I was that person. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to make people's houses look so good. I need a degree for that. And then there was some sort of cultural shock when we were hit with the amount of work that needed to go into anything at all, any project, whether it was drawing or making models or whatever it was. So this idea of process was not something I understood. It was not something I would associate to design or the definition of design. And I think this is the first thing you should do when you talk about design to, let's say, high school students. You explain that it's a process, because you go into it thinking it's, if I have good taste and I'm amazing, which I am, and I'm being weird and funky, I can make a logo in 10 minutes, So this is, as a 16-year-old entering university, this is what you think. So that's my entry point. Yeah. And then I decided, I don't want to draft things. That was also my very limited view of what architecture is. Oh, I don't want to draft bathrooms. It's really funny now. But at the time, that was my capacity. So that's how I met my better halves.
Did you switch then? You decided you switched to the visual communication major? Or?
Yeah, I switched clearly. It's like drafting bathrooms, bye. And I switched. And that's when I met Hala and Riem. And Hala has an embarrassing story about the first time she encountered me. She loves telling it. Maybe we'll make her tell it.
Please do, Hala.
Yeah. You want to say it, Hala, now? Yeah, go ahead.
The first day of school, I enter a studio and there's a girl, Hadeyeh, obviously, sitting on a table, not the chair, like in the middle of the table where people use it to like cut and build models. And she looks at me, she's like, "Oh my God, you look like a designer." And I'm the extreme opposite to Hadeyeh. I'm very shy and introverted person, and Hadeyeh was the life of the party in school. A social butterfly. So I freak out, but we instantly became really close friends because of our differences and because we're both very passionate about design. And we used to be one of the few people who stay in studio until they kick us out of the building. And Riem, on the other hand, was in the multimedia section, and they were kind of stuck in the dungeon underground,
in the dark,
soundproof rooms. So we had access to her later on.
When did you decide to make, to establish Mobius, and why did you call it Mobius? Because the name is very, tantalizing.
I think the minute we graduated from school, we had severe existential blues.
Okay.
We were really worried about joining the corporate world because we hear stories from people before us, and we also experienced it while doing our internships. And we didn't see ourselves limited into a cubicle. We wanted more of a fluid space where we experiment with different things, different fields, and not necessarily focus only on commercial projects. And we were like, we're still young and we don't have any responsibilities. We can survive, get by with limited resources. So we're like, let's go for it. Maybe someone else could tell Huda about the name. I have a love-hate relationship with it, but
let's hear the love part. Forget about the hate. We don't.
Riem, you want to talk about love, or shall I?
No, you do. Go ahead.
You do.
So love, LOVE. When we were firstly, we didn't know what we're supposed to call ourselves, right? So we're these three existential people who, at the time, I feel it's our being naive that was the biggest blessing, right? I always say this, that being naive was a good thing, because there we are, three of us, and it felt like against the world somehow. It felt like we're on a mission, and it's this very noble mission, and we're going to save the visual culture and make everything look, I don't know what.
Good taste. Have good taste.
Yeah. Have good taste. Whoever's listening to this, I apologize for being that person. Okay. So we didn't know what to call ourselves, so we start sketching. Okay. So we had rolls and rolls of tracing paper that we would just stick to the wall. And there were so many. And it could be like an A4 tracing paper, and you have something really tiny and intricate in the middle. And it was always lines that formed loops around themselves. And then lines that would twist. And then more lines, thicker lines, bigger lines. And then, oh, wow, let's go from thick to thin. But they were always twisting, no matter what. So we thought of, okay, what if we call it a Mobius? Because in literature, it could also represent two worlds in one, two worlds that never meet. Two opposites happening in parallel, if you will. And it felt right. Riem, you want to talk about the hate relationship?
I mean, this is something that we only started, I think, recognizing in recent years, reflecting back on the name and also our operation. I think that has grown over the years. We kind of feel like it doesn't, maybe perhaps it represented us 10 years ago when we started, but things have changed. And I think that we would have loved to have a name that is Arabic, for instance, or that has Arabic reference, just to refer back to our origins, our roots, our heritage, that we're very much proud of and interested in genuinely. But I also think that we wouldn't have reached this point unless our practice has also evolved over time, that allowed us to get to this type of understanding. When we first graduated, we had very little knowledge about our own cultural heritage. We were not exposed to Arabic design history at the time. I mean, we graduated quite a long time ago, so it was 2009. So what we're exposed to right now is it's an entirely different world that wasn't, we didn't access back in the day. And it wasn't offered to us. We had to actively seek these types of knowledge, this type of opportunity. So I think that it was maybe appropriate at the time, but now as we continue to kind of be a little bit more aligned with where we are in the world, geographically speaking, but also intellectually and in terms of scholarship, we feel like it doesn't fully represent us, because we also get asked, like, what does Mobius mean? And it gets mispronounced all the time. And
really?
Just, yeah, we're called Morpheus, Mobius.
Oh, Morpheus is nice too. It's collect all the mispronounced.
Exactly. It's a very difficult word to pronounce for people who are not very fluent in English. Okay. And who don't know what Mobius is. So it also feels not right, because most of the people that we work with, the people that we work for, and the work that we do is always, or most of the time, is contextual to the environment, our immediate surroundings, which is mainly Arabic speaking. So it feels a little bit, again, inappropriate at the moment. But this is, like the thoughts that we have in our heads. I don't know if we're ever going to have the courage to change it.
But I mean, our Instagram account is funny. So we started playing with it. Okay, we were like, okay, if Mobius doesn't suit us, maybe, but we're funny, maybe like, what the Mobius, you know? And then Mobius can stand for a lot of other things. But my favorite thing is when people very seriously make eye contact with you. They look you in the eye and they're like, "Oh, you are Morpheus Studio, right?" And then I don't know whether to laugh or cry. So I just like blink twice, blink, blink, and then inhale. Yeah, Mobiüs, without correcting them.
Well, yeah, you can make a lot of jokes about it, of course, but I think it's really like sometimes I think a name does define you. So what I find fascinating about the name is the fact that it is about, this duality, these two worlds. It's about duality, and I think that you all have kind of duality in your background and also in your work. Do you want to talk a little bit about your work, your projects? Tell us like some highlights about key projects that really were defining the studio.
I mean, I can start with our very first project, which is obviously very special to us because it was our first real project. Once we started the studio, obviously no one knew about us, and we were based in Tashkil back then. And it was the UAE pavilion in Venice. They were scouting for designers to hire at a very short notice because they had falling out with the studio that they've hired. And I remember that we were approached to pitch, and we had to submit a whole visual identity in 2 days. We had to stay overnight and do something very quickly. And luckily, we were hired for this job, and it was very stressful because it's such a big project. And it was only the three of us. We were fresh grads with literally zero experience in the industry, and we had to really just rely a lot on our intuition. It was super exciting because when you first get to see your work published in the real world, it's a very exciting moment for any designer. They had us fly to Venice, which was also like a highlight. And I mean, it's funny because we look back at this project and we have a lot of criticism to what we've done design-wise, but I think that it's still a very big moment for the studio because it put us on the map, first of all, but also it was quite a challenging and a very steep learning curve for us. But it really showed us what it takes to kind of work with a timeline, with a client who had maybe very different vision than ours. So for me, this still remains a very special project because it was really the very first thing that we worked on as a group.
Hala, you wanted to say something about another project?
Yeah, sure. After that, we started getting a lot of projects from cultural entities in the UAE, especially organizations that were involved with the biennial. So we worked with DCT, they keep changing their name, Abu Dhabi Tourism and Culture Authority. And a highlight for me was working on a journal called Design Matters. They decided they wanted a journal that they would publish annually in conjunction with Art Abu Dhabi to highlight designers from the region or commissions that they're working on. So it really allowed us to observe other designers around us, document their work, but also articulate their work in a form of a journal, newspaper. Yeah, that was a highlight for me as well.
And how did you guys get into curating? Because that's something very different. Like you design for cultural institutions, but then you sort of take the lead into creating cultural projects. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
So in 2013, we were fed up with working with clients. We felt stagnant. We wanted to give ourselves a project that is for the soul and that allows us to experiment without limitations in terms of time. And 2013 was a special moment in Dubai because Dubai Design Days was launched. But for us, it was also a dangerous moment because it positioned design as a luxury and not as a process. So we were like, okay, what if we work on exhibitions that negates that narrative so that we show the public another side of design? And so we spoke to Dubai Culture Authority and Sikka Art Fair and convinced them to give us a house in Bastakia and limited funding to support the work of a few designers that we select. But in return, the designers would give back to the community by sharing the process in the form of exhibitions, but also workshops, talks, etc. And this is when we started the the Design House initiative, which you mentioned. And we operated that house for around 4 years. And every year it got bigger. We got more funding, bigger houses. Yeah.
And how was your interaction with the public? Because I think that's really important. I mean, that's why you do it, I guess.
For me, Design House was, I think, everything that happened to us in our lives that was good, like securing a job or securing, getting accepted into grad school, or was because of Design House. More than anything, I feel. I mean, also our work, but Design House had heart. I know this sounds cheesy, but it's true. And in order to talk about Design House, you have to talk about the context. Yeah. So at the time, both the design and the art scene was somewhere else. Like right now, we have so much access everywhere in the world. Even when I was teaching, because I no longer teach, but Hala and Riem continue to do so. With all our students, we always felt like, wow, when we were their age, we did not have this vocabulary.
Yeah.
So, and it's easy today to take it for granted, but we didn't have much back then. So, and in order to be a designer that does not want to, I mean, our intention was not to sell commercial work. That understanding of design was we were not a part of that. So we had to make room for ourselves because no one made room for that yet. And I feel after Design House, we saw things starting to happen. And I think a ripple effect is the right word. Mm-hmm. We're not saying, oh, we started something, but in a way we ignited something, I think. I mean, I have to give us a little bit of credit, How old were we? We were just 20 something. And we started this, and our peers, people alongside us also started. So it became a community.
Yeah.
And it's exactly where we want it to be.
Yeah, I think you presented a very nice alternative to, like you said, the kind of business attitude to design, whether it's luxury or like very service oriented to sell companies that do whatever, and there was a lot of that in Dubai. And I think that it's interesting that nowadays that ecology has become bigger, so there are alternative practices of design and also a nice understanding of what design can do because of these, initiatives. And even like Design Days became Design Week, and then it also opened up. And you've done a project in Design Week that I also like, this exhibition initiative. I'd love that you discuss it here if you can.
So this project we initiated with a Cairo-based designer, Inji Ali, and it's developed under the umbrella of a Design House. But we were interested in focusing on one format, which is the poster format. I think Arab countries are not very poster friendly, specifically posters that are not, like they're not political in nature, for instance, or commercial in nature. Posters that perhaps represent simple things as events or exhibitions, etc. This is usually not the format that is used on the street. So we had the idea of bringing in or communicating with the Swiss Welt format, which is the poster festival in Lucerne, Switzerland. And we wanted to celebrate the poster format by creating a Middle East version or an Arabic version of the exhibition that also works with the same large poster format, the Welt format. And we got in touch with, I think, around 16 designers that are based either in the Arab region or outside. We had very good response from everyone, very excited, and we had the theme Delusions and Errors. And we just sort of invited the designers to respond to this theme by designing a poster of their conception using any mediums they like. But then ultimately we had a collaborator, Christine Müller, flying in from Switzerland. She did a residency at Tashkil and she screen printed all posters,
Wow.
multiple editions that continue to live. Right now, we had actually a very recent exhibition of Delusions and Error in Egypt, one in Alexandria and one in Cairo, still celebrating the same collection, which is, I would say also for us, it was a milestone. It was the largest group of designers that we've worked with under Design House. And also they were scattered around the world. So it was a really big collaboration with multiple supporters. So we had Tashkil support us, also Pro Helvetia, Cairo support us. So in that sense, the scope was very big. We exhibited during the Dubai Design Week, and we had a couple of talks, workshops. We had the Weltformat founders come in from Switzerland, also be present. And I think it was a big moment for Design House.
How did you decide on the designers you invited? I mean, nowadays it's easier. You go on Instagram, you can see everybody. But at that time, it's different research to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was more us looking into the community here. And we also had a NG in Cairo who had access to Egyptian designers and also other designers that are outside of our network. Yeah. So that was, I think that collaboration in that sense was very helpful because it allowed us to reach a much wider network than we had access to back then in Dubai. And in that sense, it was interesting, but also very challenging to select the designers. I mean, I remember that because it was curated, we had a conversation with one of the designers that it wasn't really the poster that they've designed wasn't really up to our standards.
Ouch.
And I mean, it's maybe I mean, when I think about it, it's also very subjective. Maybe if that poster would have been exhibited, it would have been like celebrated by other people, other audience. But it's also very difficult as a curator to quality control. And then how do you communicate this to the designer? Are they willing to put in the work? Because it's also we fund the project, but I don't remember if we had an artist's fee.
Yeah.
So how far do you actually push the designer to improve on or to pay attention to detail or change, make iterations, etc.? It's very difficult as a curator to have that conversation when the designer is also, like they're professionals. They are doing this on the side. We kind of understand this, obviously. So it's a difficult job. It's not very easy to work with designers because you're a designer yourself. So I know I would do things differently, but how much freedom do you give others, and how do you control your responses? What is cut out versus what is included? I mean, these are all questions that we always struggle with, and I don't think we've ever come to a satisfying answer.
We also want the balance between superstars or well-established designers and fresh graduates or emerging designers, so that they get a chance to meet or see their work next to each other. And we also focus on being inclusive in terms of reach out to different designers from different countries in the Arab world and beyond. We had a Turkish designer, we had two Iranian designers. Yeah.
You were also involved with doing an exhibition during the Fikra Graphic Design Biennial. Was that something that you think that, because of your experiences, you were invited to do this exhibition? And how was this exhibition different than a completely, totally self-initiated project?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we were invited to be part of this big project was definitely because of our prior experience. It was a very interesting learning curve for us because we had to deal with a huge amount of designers, multiple curators, and a bigger space, more funding, and more exposure. So it was a learning curve more than anything, and we wanted that to be the experience to be that. So we were responsible for curating the Flying Saucers department, and as part of the Ministry of Graphic Design. And the idea behind the department was to bring in collectives or design studios like ourselves and invite them to take over the floor or the space for a week with a specific type of budget. And we built basically 4 case studies during the 4 weeks of the biennial to see how other peoples would handle a curatorial project with a limited budget and space, and learn from their activations. And so we invited the Foundland Collective, Cairo, Amsterdam-based collective, and Turbo from Amman, Sendusi from Korea, and Pulp Fiction from LA. And they all activated the space in very different ways. And that was really, really inspiring for us.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about what they did?
Yeah. So, for example, Sendusi is a design studio based in Seoul, and they operate as a design studio during the day, and they turn into a bar / a club at night to generate income for the studio, so that they can continue making soulful projects. And so they had an installation that they exhibited. It was inspired by LED lights and projections, and they activated the space by multiple parties during the biennial, networking parties.
Yeah.
So that's one. They all have very different agendas. Some are very curated, some are completely playful, and we didn't want to intervene. We just wanted to observe and build case studies. Another example is Turbo. Turbo, for example, they wanted to make a commentary on the building itself. The building, that the venue of the biennial has a history, and so they collected more memorabilia from the building prior to us occupying the building, and they wanted to do something with it. So there was a display of the found memorabilia and how it tells the story about the history of the building, but then they hosted workshop a screen printing workshop that documents and preserves the content of these memorabilia in the form of T-shirts and posters. But they also had a party. What else? The Foundland Collective, they're interested in producing innovative ways of talking about the refugee crisis in Syria. And so they were interested in exhibiting about that, but also conducting a workshop with local designers here to investigate a road in Sharjah that is currently occupied by Syrians. It's really interesting, but this street, every time there's a catastrophe in one country, a neighboring country, the demographics of this street changes. So in 2003, when there was the invasion in Iraq, the street was filled with Iraqis. In 2007, when we started getting a lot of Syrians into Sharjah, this whole street changed. And so they did a workshop where they interviewed people from the street. The restaurants have the same brands that existed in Syria. So they did a workshop and they documented the street as well.
Do you think this biennial will happen again? Has it been like also kind of effective in changing the perspective of the local community on what graphic design could be? Because I remember that it had not what you normally expect graphic design to be, in the sense that it was not like specific project to a specific client, that it's the usual logo, poster, blah, blah, kind of application based, but it explored ideas. How was it received in the community?
I think Hala should answer this, but I'll answer. One of the most powerful things was there was a really famous building on Bank Street, right? That was supposed to be demolished, but after the biennial, they decided to keep it.
Wow!
So the Fikra biennial, because of everyone who participated, it convinced the authorities that this place, you can breathe life into this place. You can repurpose what it was for. And I think that was very powerful.
I love your projects, obviously. That's why we're here talking about them. And so I can talk to you endlessly about them. But I want you to say, is there any other project you want to talk about? And then I would like to talk about the Looming Council and how that came about.
I mean, one of the things that also happened in parallel to Design House was that we were adamant in creating a publication that accompanies every exhibition. And from I think the third edition of Design House, once we started to have a little bit more experience, we wanted the publication to transcend just being a documentation or a catalog of the projects that were exhibited, and we wanted it to be a little bit more critical, reflecting on the theme that we propose, the process that maybe the designers have gone through, etc. So we started commissioning writers to write about the bigger topics that arise in our discussions within ourselves, but also our discussions with the designers once we start initiating or them proposing their projects to us. And I think that has resulted in a couple of very valuable publications to us. Mm-hmm. It was also it's a very different thing working with writers or thinking or articulating design thoughts or theories, developing theories around what you do as a practice. We're very much visual people, obviously, but then we also now really believe that without theoretical critical kind of analysis of what we do, it's very difficult for us to evolve thoughtfully. So I think also for me, this is a very important component to our Design House editions, but also generally we like to develop these more like just to push the entire discourse a little bit forward, and to help us reflect on what we do in the practical aspect of the work.
And are these publications available if people want to have? I mean, if you come to the exhibition, you can always get one, but are they available outside and afterwards? Because I think they are also important.
I think there are a number of publications in libraries. So, for instance, the Art Jamil Library has a couple of our publications there. Tashkil Library has some of those as well. I'm not sure whether they're up for sale, but we're, I mean, if anyone's interested, I think we're happy to share like a PDF at least. We have those.
Okay.
And we don't gatekeep. So if anyone's interested, you can get in touch with us, and we can give you access for sure.
Okay. I mean, I think it's also like I find, you know, I just want to bring it back to your personal backgrounds, because, you know, you're also multicultural yourselves, you know, Egyptian, Iraqi, Emirati, and then you also had education in the Arab world, but also in Switzerland, which is like the complete opposite in many ways. Like when you came back from Switzerland, did you change your perspective on design in the region?
I remember in my first week in Switzerland, the school took us to a retrospective exhibition of Weingard, and he personally gave us the tour. And I remember there was me and another Arab designer in the group, and he looks at us and he's like, "You're not from here." So we're like, "Oh no, he's going to be one of those racist old people." And he's like, "You know, as soon as you finish your school, you have to go back." I felt like, "No, please, I love you. Don't say anything that would make me change my mind about you," because I was a big fan of his work. We studied it thoroughly in history books. And then he was like, "No, I mean that there are so many problems in the Arab world that it's exciting for a designer to be there. There's so much to do, so much to change." And that really, really changed my mind about practicing design in the Arab world. We used to always blame it that, "Oh, nothing works here, there's censorship, there are no production facilities that allow us to experiment, blah, blah, blah." But really, it's a very exciting place to be at.
And had that influenced like your idea of coming back to and teaching?
Maybe Riem can start, because she started teaching before the two of us.
Yeah, so I started teaching in 2014, right off the bat after I graduated my master's. I think I really believe I got lucky, because I had a person who believed in me on the search committee, who interviewed me, who knew who I was as a student, and decided to give me a chance. I've always been interested in teaching. And I also received a lot of feedback from my mentors and from my fellow colleagues that I would be good at teaching. I was just curious to try it out. And I had nothing to lose. I mean, anyways, we continue to operate in the studio. I started as an adjunct anyway, so it was part-time. I thought this is a good, again, way to enter academia, just to try things out, see how I feel, how I would fit in. But it was also interesting to come back to the place that you graduated from. Also awkward, because I had to teach next to professors who taught me as a freshman student. Yeah. So I felt like tiny and small in many ways. But I would say personally, I'm very passionate about teaching. I think it's very rewarding. It's very challenging. It's nothing like I thought it would be when I first entered academia, obviously. I feel like it's an important role that someone has to do. If you feel like you have the skill for it, you have the knack for it, I would encourage people to try, because we do need good teachers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when did you, Hadeyeh, join, or Hala, whichever one of you did? Did you join at the same time, or is it like one and then kind of like natural growth, and second,
so
and then third.
we rotated going to postgraduate school.
Okay.
So I went first, finished, and then once I came back, Hala went to do her master's, and then once she was back, Hadeyeh went. So we always joked about rotating to go and do a master's, but then we ultimately did so, and then we also started rotating, entering the academia. So I first started teaching, then Hala followed, and then Hadeyeh.
Okay. Hadeyeh, you did your postgraduate in design or in fine arts?
I did mine in fine arts, and I went to Chicago. So I was in the States, very different than being in Basel.
Yeah.
I was also there during the Trump presidency.
Ooh,
It wasn't so nice. Yeah, yeah. What more shall I say about America? I don't miss it, but I miss being a student. I think we all do.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because we got a chance, we have I don't know, the chance to be on the other side. So experiencing it both ways, being a student twice. And I just think teaching was very humbling. Just standing at the other side as an educator, you feel this kind of that, okay, I am responsible. I kind of have the anything can go sideways depending on how dedicated you are, what you say, what you choose to teach, what you choose to emit, how you choose to evaluate someone. But at the same time, you know that you don't know everything. You just know a little bit more than the people in front of you.
Yeah.
And the people in front of you are impatient, very critical of you. Like I used to say, I'm just worried they'll stare inside my nose, like that's how critical they are. It's you are there. What's the word for scrutiny?
Yeah.
So it's humbling in all those silly ways, but also humbling because there's a lot of self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
You have to make. It's your time, a lot of your time. And we used to think as students that professors just show up and teach and leave. Simple as that, right? And they're teaching things they know. But when you're on the other side, you question how much you know. You question yourself all the time. And that's exhausting. One. And then you have so many other responsibilities alongside teaching, alongside being responsible for 60, 70 students a semester. You have service to the university. You have to publish. You're just an octopus.
Yeah. But don't you find that is kind of like what Riem was talking about also a bit? Also, it affords you a space for self-criticism and for like thinking about where the profession should go. And maybe this scrutiny, that's also kind of like self-scrutiny, actually. I mean, maybe you imagine your students, more than like, it's more you imagining how they look at you than knowing what they really look at you like.
Oh, no, and they tell you.
They tell you.
They make sure to tell you.
You summed it in a nice way because it's like, you said that, you stand there and you know a little bit more than they do, but you don't know everything. And they ask you a question that makes you want to learn more. That challenge is really important. And so in a way, teaching is also about learning.
It was very much reciprocated. I think being in academia, teaching is the best part. It's the part you cherish. And it's the part where you can be passionate and completely selfless.
Yes.
Just to add to what Hadeyeh was saying, I also feel like it's important for me. I'm sure also Hala and Hadeyeh agree that we practice while we teach. I think that our practice and our teaching feed off of each other. I also think that students respond to practitioners better because they see you practice what you preach. They're also very curious about what you do outside of the classroom. And when you stop practicing, I feel we stop growing and we stop learning how to implement everything that is new in our field. I mean, it's a very quickly changing discipline with a lot of new tools and things that we have to continue to relearn independently. And it's important I think, when you teach that you're able to implicitly implement this in your own work, because outside of the classroom you're still very much representative of the discipline and where it's at, and it's very important for students to see that, because they look at you as their future, you know.
You're their role model in some ways.
I don't want to be a role model, but I mean,
and not to discourage, not to like feel, but it is a responsibility, and it is that, but it shouldn't cripple you. I mean, you should just be yourself and like, be aware of it in some ways. I mean, it makes me think of like what you're saying makes me think of the last time I saw you and you had an exhibition of your students' work with all these experiments with type design. Maybe you want to talk a little bit more about that project, because I found it really beautiful and very thought-provoking.
Yeah, so we I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we were approached by our head of department to start a new major elective that could work online, because all our major electives can't be taught online because of it requires physical space and tools. So Riem and I were like, this is the time for us to push for Arabic type course. Because ever since we were students, we never had the opportunity to learn Arabic type formally in a university. We just we took workshops here and there, Khatt, Nadine Shaheen, and some in Egypt, and we graduated from university with this fear of playing with the Arabic script, because we were not formally trained. And we kept seeing these amazing designers all around the region experimenting with it, and we really wanted to do that. But at the same time, there was fear and phobia from touching it, because we don't know the basics, we don't know the rules, what to do and what not to do. And so we really didn't want our students to have this fear, to experiment and not treat the script in a very sacred way. So we, put our brains together, and we concentrated our efforts into studying all the resources out there, including Khatt books, so that we can put together a course and teach the students a glyph software and see how it goes. I remember when we first proposed it, it was rejected from. Can I say this, Riem? Okay. It was rejected because the university was like, not everyone speaks Arabic here. You're not being inclusive, and we are proud of the fact that we are diverse and we promote diversity, and that this course is problematic. So we were really frustrated. We were like, what, we'll just throw it at the students and see what the students do. And luckily the students put together a petition, and 55 students signed up the petition demanding for this course to happen. And some of them don't even speak Arabic, but they're really interested in the idea of learning the script, because once you graduate from the university, you have to learn or know the basics of Arabic type if you're planning to practice in the UAE or in the region.
Yeah.
and the petition reached higher management, and then the course was approved, luckily. And then they gave us the responsibility of, they told us if it was taught 3 times and it succeeded 3 times, the course could turn it into a permanent course, not an elect. So that was another milestone for us. We were like, okay, let's teach it and let's try our best to do that. The final product for the course, each student designed a functional font. We taught it 3 times, and recently it got approved as a permanent course. And
wow, that's fantastic.
For us. Yeah.
And we don't write anymore by hand. We certainly hardly write in Arabic. So that also is like there's a dissociation from the culture. And I think bringing that back and bringing back, interest in handwriting and exploring and thinking critically in Arabic is very important. So I'm really happy to see that like this is kind of a growing thing. And you see online a lot of people also being involved in like documenting this history, documenting this work that was done in that period, documenting all these archives, looking at, creating archives from these documentations, looking at, the vernacular typography in the environment. Is that part of your motivation behind the Looming Council?
I can start a little bit, but I'm sure we can talk for so long about this project, but it has stemmed from our experience in academia. Obviously, it's an observation that a lot of designers and educators are. I think there's a moment of awakening in the region that. As Hala said, we can't afford to wait to have the curricula change for us, the histories that are being taught in our classrooms to be changed for us. This is something that we are responsible for. And I think there are so many initiatives that are coming up with this motivation to kind of puncture the canon and to reclaim the narrative and to start at least to infiltrate the institution, integrate a little bit of the cultural heritage and the visual culture of the region in what is being taught in schools, in design schools. Again, this is having graduated from a university that continues to teach the same history book for a decade now. We haven't been at all exposed to design history to the extent that I think we've practiced for a while, not knowing who are some of the prominent designers, for instance. And I think that, for instance, the Arabic design series, Khatt Foundation, this is, I think you have a similar motive in creating these books that are very much useful in the classroom. An educator can use this very easily. So the Looming Council sort of attempts to present compressed educational platform, something that can be used as a reference for practitioners, designers, students, and educators alike. By our focus right now is creating this what we call a graphic library, and we're looking into archives from various countries and extracting different graphic elements that we think are interesting, whether these are logos, typographic components, icons, etc. And then hopefully we're going to be creating this huge collection of graphics that we have some of it already extracted over the past 2 years, and so many interesting, very progressive graphics are coming to light. We're also attempting to trace who the designers are, what the origins of these graphics are. So we're kind of supporting the visual with as much data as possible. It's allowing us to understand a lot more about the publishing and the print industry at the time. And also, it's just really a proof that there's so much history that goes missing, and we don't think that it exists, but it does. It's just that it's not well documented. It's not accessible at all. You have to really scout and dig through a lot of material to expose it, but it's just extremely rich. And the illusion that the current graphic design discourse gives us is that while the West and the global North was flourishing, there was nothing happening in this part of the world, and this is completely untrue. So ultimately, I think this is our goal, to show the how rich the visual culture actually is, and the solutions, the experiments that were being done very long time ago, that we have never seen before, are actually proof that there was so much innovation at the time in the discipline of graphic design, even though it wasn't called graphic design back then. So this is sort of the spirit of the Looming Council.
I have more like practical questions regarding the project. I mean, how do you collect this material? Do you have a team like in different parts of the region that are helping? Second, do you have a time frame, or are you just going as far back as you can, or do you collect also things that are contemporary? And my third question regarding the Looming Council, do we imagine it like as a platform that's totally visual with little information about everything, or is there going to be, more information, like more kind of like what you said in your exhibitions? You commissioned writers to kind of write essays and take this, this material that is exhibited and contribute to the topics or whatever. Is that also part of your plan for this online platform, or online visual library is what you called it, which I think is really beautiful idea. Beautiful description. Sorry for asking 3 questions. Maybe like each one of you answers one of the questions. How about that?
At the beginning of the project, when we got the funding, we were all over the place. We wanted to document everything in the shortest amount of time possible, and it's not feasible. So we decided to limit ourselves to 3 countries and a specific time period from the 30s till the 80s. And then we also wanted to specify to publications, so magazines and newspapers. And then in the future, we could move on to other things and other periods of time. We're lucky that one of our funders, Warehouse 421, has been conducting brainstorming sessions with us to help us narrow down the research and the project, because at the beginning we were very ambitious. And we're focusing mainly on populating the graphic library. That's the first milestone for this year. And then next year, we would start commissioning writers to talk about this graphic library, specific sections. We're also interested in writing in specific things that we've noticed so far. Like, for example, we've been obsessed with dynamic identities. There's this idea that dynamic identity is credited to a specific Swiss designer from the 50s, but we've been finding out a lot of dynamic identities through magazines that dates back to the 30s in the Arab world. So yeah, that's my response.
What do you mean by dynamic identities? Can you just define it for us?
As in the logo changes from one edition to another, for example.
Okay. But do you know if there was any connections between designers? I mean, I guess, like, we always assume that because they didn't have the internet that, like things didn't travel, or ideas or connections weren't there. Do you know if there was any connections between designers? Can you find that out?
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. Okay. Hadeyeh?
Yeah, I mean, the countries that we're currently focusing on are Egypt, Lebanon, and Syria. We also have Iraq in the mix. I mean, one of the things that we've realized at the very beginning of the project is that we can never do this project alone. So we always promote it as this is community driven. We cannot do this without the contribution of community members, people who are interested in the same subjects, and we do ask for people to reach out to us if they're willing to collaborate. So we do have some scouts on the ground. We also try to travel as much as possible. So we did go to Cairo a couple of times, visited libraries, secondhand markets, the same in Beirut. And we're hoping to continue to do that, but also rely on people who are living there. We're also lucky to have students travel back to their countries in vacation. So we kind of always try to encourage them to look for us in bookstores or anywhere else that they would know as locals of the cities or countries that they live in. So it's always going to be a community-driven platform if we really want to try and expand it to the Swana region, which is ultimately our ambition.
It would be really nice to have also a little bit more, Northwest Africa, like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya.
Yes.
But
well, speaking of Libya, there was an instance, a very beautiful instance. Like you got the sense of camaraderie and community that could come out of this. And for us, it was like a spark and a good omen and a sign. Someone got in touch with us, and I'm going to give her a shout out, Sarah Al-Ani. And she just said, hey, I'm in Libya, and there's this bookstore that has old publications, and I can go and visit and scan for you. Isn't that incredible? Because really we know we can't do everything. We just want to create this ripple effect, and Hala coined the term, and we're just going to use it forever. It's this ripple effect of things just spreading, and we're really hoping that moments like this will happen, and people will contribute. And right now, and I think the honest thing to say is that our connections and people we know, we're lucky to have been able to go to Egypt and Beirut, but we would love for, let's say, someone from Southeast Asia to contribute, or North Africa. It really depends on the community. I also wanted to say that I think the Looming Council was also born out of our experience as educators. So, like I said, what you choose to include and omit says a lot about you. I mean, you can hold any institution responsible for so long, but then again, you are also somewhat separate. You can make small changes, very small. Maybe it's just I'm going to show X and Y and Z resource from, let's say, Libya once a week. And the Looming Council is also like an act of defiance. It's a way to resist. It's a way to say, and our logo is kind of like a camera lens or an eyeball staring at you. It's just to say, we're looking back. All this, the Western canon has been hovering on top of us, I think, for as long as we know, but let's change that.
Where do you imagine this wave is going in the future? I mean, what do you think is going to be really important for graphic design in the region in the future?
Well, firstly, I think we need more resources. So it's not enough to collect, which is why the next step for us was, okay, we're going to start digitizing. And after that, I mean, like Hala and Riem said, we are hoping to build scholarship around everything that's been collected so that us and, I mean, educators everywhere can teach from this. So it could be a publication, it could be a symposium. What it is, you know, going to take shape when we're there. And we're 100% sure something's going to come out of it.
But I want you to end with one final statement, and a short one, because we've talked so long. Do you have any final statements for the listeners, like something to end this beautiful conversation with?
I think that we spoke a lot about fear, but I think that there's really no room for fear. I think whatever you want to do, don't be scared. I think that there's so much opportunity, and don't be scared of failure. We embrace failure a lot in our work, and don't victimize yourself. I think everyone has the power to make a change, even if it's super minor. And just don't be a victim.
Beautiful. Absolutely right, Riem. Don't be a victim. And failure is just a learning process.
I have something to say. You know, just like lighten things up. Failure, what's scary, I think everyone should follow on Instagram. I don't feel safe in Egypt.
Oh, that's a funny one. Yes.
It's my absolute favorite page. And I think everyone should go to Cairo, you know, at least once in their lives, and not to the new area.
I think that's a good way to stop being scared, is to go to Cairo.
To go to Cairo?
you need a lot of courage.
I mean, the first time, like the first few years, Riem and Hala and I were friends. Riem would cross the road without looking.
Yeah.
And that never made sense until, we were friends for 12 years? Until last year when I went to Cairo. I'm like, yeah, I get it. And, you know, embody the spirit of crossing the road without looking, but you know, don't do it. Just the spirit.
Just the
spirit part.
Hala, you get the last word on this show.
I would say, don't worry so much about categorizing yourself. I think it's okay to go beyond disciplinary boundaries. Just because you were trained as a graphic designer doesn't mean you can't write. Or do other things. And it's our responsibilities as designers to push the boundaries of the discipline and go beyond the stereotypes or this preconceived idea that it's a service-oriented profession, merely a service-oriented profession, but actually it's much more.
It's a service to community, I think, in some ways, like not just a service to a company. And yeah, I agree. Oh, I'm going to miss you guys. I can't wait to come to Dubai and see you in person.
I'm very excited. We should definitely come in March. It's very soon.
Yeah, I know. Khalas, March. That's it. It's set. We go and we sit at the beach and drink tea and have more conversations and not share them with anybody.
And I can give you a tour.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. This was so great, and I really love talking to you. And I hope that you inspire the listeners as much as you inspire me with your projects. And I send you lots of love. And
I send you love always.
all
Thank
the
you very
good
much.
things. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you and goodbye.